All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking a truly fascinating spiritual tradition today. If you're a beginner looking to understand the ancient roots of the Coptic Orthodox Church, well, you are in the perfect place. We're going to be exploring this incredible concept of an ancient spiritual army and basically breaking down the ultimate hero's guide to becoming a warrior within it. We'll be looking directly at the teachings surrounding the Feast of Nayrouz to understand exactly how this ancient tradition views spiritual victory. It's going to be a great one.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll quickly cover the Feast of Nayrouz, meet Heaven's army, explore the promise of heaven, and finally, look at the specific traits of a spiritual soldier. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The Feast of Nayrouz. Understanding the celebration. Before we actually meet this army, we need to set the stage.
So what exactly is Nayrouz? For those just starting to look into this, it literally marks the beginning of the Coptic New Year. But, and this is key based on our source material, it is so much more than just flipping over a calendar page. It is fundamentally the feast of the victorious church. Think of it as a church that views itself as living in this continuous, unyielding state of victory over Satan, the powers of darkness, and really all their earthly temptations.
Just look at the majestic, almost mystical vibe here. According to the writings of Father Tadros y Malaty, this whole idea of a victorious church serves a very specific, practical purpose for believers. Basically, it protects them. When you're confronted with the heavy desires of the body or just the everyday pressures of the world, knowing, truly understanding that you are part of this victorious body, it keeps you from falling into despair. It's an absolute game changer. So, how do they actually maintain that victory? By relying on a core spiritual battle cry. As the text points out, these believers recognize that, hey, our own human abilities are pretty limited. They completely ignore their own solitary strength. Actually, scratch that. It's more like they joyfully surrender it. They sing this verse from Philippians from the bottom of their hearts, relying 100% on the strength of Christ to overcome worldly obstacles.
Moving on to Section 2. Meet Heaven's army, the commander and the warriors. We know it's a victorious church, but who exactly is out there doing the fighting?
Well, every great army needs a great commander, right? In this tradition, the commander of the army of salvation is the Lord of all believers. And the source really emphasizes that this is a commander who led by the ultimate, most profound example, sacrificing and giving himself on the cross for the salvation of the world. He literally passed by the believers who had fallen asleep to lead them forward.
And following that commander is this absolutely breathtaking procession of heroes. If you're a beginner to this history, these are the legendary warrior characters totally treasured by Paradise. It kicks off with the children of Bethlehem, literally the earliest martyrs, kids who were killed in their mother's arms for the sake of the incarnate Christ. Then we have the famous martyred soldiers. We're talking absolute legends here, like Saint Theodore of Shotep, Saint George, Saint Philopateer, and Saint Mina. But it doesn't just stop with the big famous names. It includes myriads of unknown martyrs, monks, hermits, priests of all ranks, and just everyday people from all nations joining this heavenly host.
And here is where it gets really personal. This army? It isn't just a historical list of untouchable VIPs. The entire purpose of the Nayrouz feast is for every single believer to understand that they too are a special member of this great army. From Adam all the way to the end of times, each member is uniquely loved by the Holy Trinity and granted a special place in the Father's bosom. You are literally meant to look at this massive roster and see your own name right there on it.
That brings us to Section 3, the promise of heaven, connecting the earthly fight to heavenly rewards. So what is this army fighting for, and what are the mechanics behind these present battles?
Our source pulls from the truly beautiful words of St. Macarius the Great to explain how heaven actually works for these soldiers. He teaches that heavenly gifts aren't some strange, far-off reality up in the clouds. Instead, eternal life is simply a continuation of the spiritual pleasures that believers are already touching during their present earthly fight. By uniting with the heavenly army right now, while still in the flesh, you essentially start experiencing heaven today.
To actually pull this off, the believer has to become a holy vessel. And the ultimate inspiration for this? The Virgin St. Mary, whose womb became a literal vessel of the divine during the Incarnation. In that exact same way, the text explains that the Holy Trinity transforms true believers into unique, chosen vessels. And when you become this kind of holy vessel, your spiritual thoughts and emotions become basically impenetrable. Those demons of despair we talked about earlier, they simply cannot intrude. No way.
But of course, this transformation doesn't just happen by accident.
It requires discipline. It requires resilience. The source points us directly to St. Paul's bold call to action in 2 Timothy. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. This is not a passive journey, folks. It requires active endurance. And that sets us up perfectly for our final section, the actual training manual.
Section 4. Traits of a Spiritual Soldier. The Training Manual. Based on these writings, we've synthesized the core characteristics of a good soldier of Christ. Let's open up the manual.
Okay, this first set of traits is all about having an internal, heavenly mindset. A true spiritual soldier absolutely refuses to let earthly sorrows distract them. Instead, they're constantly thanking God for every blessing, just marveling at His work. They possess a deep, genuine love for all mankind, and, through the Holy Bible, they enter into a daily, loving dialogue with God, seeing it as the light on their road to heaven.
Now, check out these rules of engagement. Notice what a soldier actively avoids first. They don't get caught up in outward appearances or just the physical show of worship. You know, like doing physical prostrations just to get attention. They also avoid complaining about life on earth, and they don't accept the chastisement of sinners. But on the flip side, this is what they actively embrace. They retreat into a deep, inward relationship with God. While they hate sin, they pray for God to attract sinful souls to holiness, and they keep their gaze completely transfixed on heaven.
And this leads to something truly profound. For the spiritual soldier, the absolute happiest moment of their life isn't stuck in the past, and it isn't just waiting for them after death. The happiest moment is right now. Because Christ abides in them, the true believer feels they are constantly going from glory to glory in this eternal union. How amazing is that?
Finally, the last trait of the spiritual soldier is just an overwhelming sense of hope. When they look at the world, they do not see defeat. They realize that in every single generation, hidden, valiant soldiers are quietly joining the army of heaven. They remember this incredible verse from 1 Kings, where God reminds the prophet Elijah that he's not alone, that thousands of faithful warriors are still standing strong, even when they're totally unseen.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for you. You've seen the victorious church, you've met the warrior characters, and we've read through the training manual. The Feast of Nayrouz is basically an open invitation. So looking at your own spiritual battles, are you ready to cast away despair and take your place in the ranks of heaven's army? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.